Exactly.
Hello, everyone. This is a special video today. I have two amazing people that are going to share their experience and some tips with planning. And wow, do we need that, don't we? When we're moving abroad, it can get really ugly really fast, right? The overwhelm can go up. So this is why I have decided to invite Alegre and Natascha here to tell you a little bit about how to plan. And without further ado, I would like to ask, and I'm going to go one by one, like first Alegre, then Natascha. Is that okay? Just so you share a little bit about what you do in Beyond Your Wildest Dreams and how this can benefit anyone preparing for an international relocation. Alegre, do you want to share a little bit about the company and a little about yourself?
Yes, thank you. So my name is Alegre Ramos. I am a longtime entrepreneur. And actually, I met Deborah in MBA school. And it was while I was getting my MBA that I really became a fan of professional development, productivity, planning. And I'm just a lifelong student. I've always liked to plan, and I like learning about planning. And especially planning in the last 10 years has gotten really exciting for me because there's a lot more brain science behind it. You know, before you were kind of guessing at what worked, and now we have more certainty about what works, and that's really exciting. However, what I found was that when I became a mom and also a caregiver, because I have an older grandmother and a mother-in-law who needs assistance from our family, that a lot of the planning tools didn't work for me anymore. And I think that's because the mostly men who came up with them didn't have any responsibility in terms of caregiving. All they had to think about was their business and what they wanted to do. And planning is so different when you have multiple people pulling on your time. Mm-hmm. And so that's really when I started to tweak what I had learned over the decades, because I do have decades of learning behind me at this point. And I started to find things that were really working for me in my new role as an entrepreneur and mom and caregiver. And I started informally coaching friends and family who would ask me, how do you manage to homeschool your child and have a business and go on, month-long trips to Oaxaca or whatever? And I would always say planning. I mean, that's how I do it. And so what I discovered through this process was that everyone was a little bit different. Like, just because this tool worked for me didn't mean it would work for that person. But eventually I got to a point where, and Natascha was one of the friends that I was kind of informally coaching, I said to Natascha, I feel like there is a framework here that could be taught and would allow people to customize the framework to their specific needs and their place in life. And so we started working with that, and we started teaching it last year, and the results have been phenomenal. I mean, people have said it was life-changing because, it's just one of those life skills that affects every part of your life, personal, professional, but it's not taught.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. The people who follow me know that I always say this quote, like, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
All Ben Franklin.
Yeah, exactly. So I couldn't agree more. And especially when we are, dealing with, no pun intended, all these moving parts with a move, right? Like suddenly everything in your life revolves around this huge leap of faith, and not only faith, which is an international relocation. So Natascha, imagine someone that's moving abroad, which is probably someone who's listening and watching us. What tips would you, give them if they're just starting? How should they start? Like, blank canvas, what should happen there?
Well, I know that you've got this what for question, right? And this is so funny because when we were talking to you about this in our interview of you, I was like, oh my goodness, so many parallels inside of you have to really understand what you're planning for. And my planning journey, as like I said a minute ago, I was one of their informal coachees, was because I was really good at planning contained events, but when it came to larger scope things, like something like moving your entire life to another country, and that maybe being a goal or a plan of yours, or a far off maybe plan, this is where things fell apart for me. And so getting in touch with really like your core principles, or really like things that you're really, really passionate about, your values, is like key to understanding a much bigger plan for yourself, right? Because then you can look at this overwhelming to-do list and you can just say like, okay, that maybe needs to get done, or maybe could get done, or maybe could be delegated to someone else. How does this fit into like my values, right? So if you're knowing what you're moving for, is this little thing that could this be delegated to somebody else, or is it even really important? How does this fit into the overall vision? Because my biggest problem has always been like, I just get bogged down with the day-to-day stuff, right? Get bogged down with the things that are pulling at me, those things that seem urgent in the moment, and then I go to bed at night and had I done anything today that moved me down the road, moved the needle down towards this goal of mine, and in this case, for a lot of your listeners, this goal of moving to another country, and really being able to prioritize those things based on what you value, your what for.
Absolutely. And it's funny you say that, because one of the tools that I teach, and usually it's very in the beginning of my courses, is think about your long-term goals in your life and in your family, and how does this move align with that? And if it doesn't, well, maybe you shouldn't be moving.
It's funny because we actually teach moving. So we have these fake goals. They're not our personal goals, right? But we have these fake goals that we show people. If you have this lifelong goal of moving abroad for a year, is the scenario we have. This is what you might do 5 years in advance, and 3 years in advance, and 1 year in advance. And so it's interesting because this is something that we have sort of thought through, right? But
example.
It's as one of our examples, but we've thought about it as sort of a 1 year long-term goal, right? And so what are the things that you might do daily in order? So we like to back in from the big to the small, right? So 5 years, 3 years before you move, you might want to decide what country you're actually moving to and start looking at the logistics, right? What paperwork do you need? Where are you going to live? Blah, blah, blah. 5 years out, you might have decided, okay, this continent is where I generally want to be. And maybe once a year you do 1 week trips to those places to kind of see which one is jiving with you more. But then like 10 years out, if you're saying, I want to live in a Spanish-speaking country for 1 year, well, then you need to start working on your Spanish, which gives you your daily goal of doing that 10 minutes of Duolingo or whatever it is, so that you can start to learn the language of where you want to be later on.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the only thing I would add to that is, what are you moving for? What are you doing?
Right, absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's amazing.
Right.
So, and now, Alegre and Natascha, how do you get the whole family on board when you're changing perhaps some habits, introducing maybe some new ways of doing things, which, we know that change can be hard for some people. How do you manage that? How do you make sure everyone is on the same page?
Well, we have a couple of different tools that we recommend to people. And again, we always say in our course, take what speaks to you, leave the rest, because everyone's coming into this with a different level of planning expertise or planning background, and also everyone has slightly different needs. So for instance, what my family does a lot is we actually have family meetings. My husband and I, once a week, my daughter takes part in them when we feel it's relevant. And it was not easy starting the family meetings. There was a lot of inertia on the part of my husband saying, I don't know why we have to do these things. And I said, well, because our communication is faltering. I tell you I'm going to this event and you need to be present for our child. And then the event happens and you forget that it's happened. So we need to have these meetings. And I chose Sunday night because, you have the whole week ahead of you. So you can kind of do a little bit of planning for the week ahead. And when we would miss those Sunday meetings, my husband would say, oh, I forgot that thing. It's because we didn't have the meeting. And so he started to see, I mean, like any new habit, like exercise, making your bed, eating healthier, it's hard in the beginning. You have to get over that inertia. But if you know that, then you can be prepared for that, right? That's kind of like what you're saying. Just knowing the pain points you're going to face can be helpful mentally, right? So knowing that it's going to take some inertia to get you going. But then when you start to see the benefits, with my husband specifically, like we communicate so much easier when we actually know what each other is doing. That's one of the things that I do. So figure out, maybe a family meeting would work for you, but Natascha is a very different tool that helps her with her husband and their family staying on track.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear it.
This is part of like our courses and stuff is really adaptability, right? Alegre and I are just different people. We have a lot of overlap in the Venn diagram of the Alegre Natascha diagram, and then we have a lot of not overlap, which is some of the things I think a strong example for people to recognize that they get to modify for themselves, and we do things a little differently. So part of like what you're saying, how do you get people on board? We do two things. One, we have kind of, it's a family meeting, but we call them money love dates, and it's always on the day my husband has a payday. And that night, he and I get together. So we try to keep like a handle on our finances in that way. So like, of course, if you're moving abroad, you better have a budget. You better have a skate. Everybody better be on board with the plan, right? And so, in fact, my husband mentioned this. We're planning a family trip to Europe next year. And this morning he was like, we got to make sure we start, because we're just kind of solidifying that. And I'm just starting to, okay, we need to get our passports, that kind of thing. And we're talking about like, a European trip fund, right? So we have these, we call them money love dates. We do them on the day of his payday. This way we just know it's every 2 weeks. It's just something that we do. It's in our calendar. It's forever and ever. It just shows up. It's populated in the Google Calendar forever. And the other thing that we do to keep my husband and I on the same literal page is I have a printout called a partner page. And on Sunday night, I fill out the partner page about what's going on that collectively he and I both need to know about. And he lives by the partner page, because he's kind of more of a thinker, like what's happening in the next 5 minutes. Like he's not thinking about like the weekscape. And so that will keep us, and if anything needs to be updated, he comes home from work at night, and, I'll fill in some new stuff, or if something gets moved or crossed out, the partner page, because we tried that the shared Google Calendar
didn't work.
Not working. He just never checked it, but because he's much more of a tactile person, he needs that page, and he shoves it in his own planner. The thing also that I feel like is important, you're saying like, how do we get people on the same page? I feel like when you come to the rest of your family with choice, as opposed to like, here's what we're doing, and having those, especially, your kids are not able to make life decisions for your family, but for them to be included on like the options that you have, and the whys that, as opposed to like, we're moving because I said so, right? As opposed to like, well, here's why, and here's what's available to our family because of it, and then being present for the emotions that are going to come up. I'm sure that there's going to be emotions coming up, and just like I approach the new school year at the end of the summer, I have a checklist that we have for the kids, like an AM checklist and a PM checklist, to help get them back into these habits of like coming downstairs, putting on your shoes, making sure you have your tablet in your Chromebook in your backpack, these kinds of things too, to help establish. And they don't use these checklists now, it's April, but let me tell you, very important in August and September. So those kinds of things to help refocus and implement. And so then I'm also not nagging, right? And I'm just like, oh, check your checklist. Has everything on your checklist checked off? Put on your shoes, brush your teeth, this kind of thing, to just kind of keep referring them back to the checklist. Those are like the 3 different things that we implement to try to A, get everyone on the same page, B, feel like people are validated and heard, and C, implement new habits.
Wow, those are great tips. I'm thinking about how I'm going to do that with my 7-year-old.
It's magic.
Yeah.
I'll send you my little template, and just kind of like laminate it at the beginning of the year, and then we just use like a dry erase check mark, and then erase it that week, and then start all over again the following week. It works great.
Yeah, because I contemplate. I know, I love checking things off.
Like check. Yeah,
I've contemplated recording like "Go brush your teeth" on my iPhone, so I have to prepare myself.
announce it every 2 minutes. Go brush your teeth. Go brush
Exactly.
your teeth.
Just press play.
Well, and then in terms of the actual moving, like for my family, right before the pandemic, we spent a month in Oaxaca, and it was something that it took about maybe 7 months to plan towards. And so one of the things that I found was really helpful with my family in terms of getting them excited and engaged about it was watching. There's so much media out there now that you can watch. So for instance, Patty Hinich has a couple of really great, I don't know if you've ever seen Patty, she's a chef. She has a show called, I think it's called Patty's Mexican Table. And she did a couple of shows in Oaxaca, and she's like part travel, part food. And so when she went to those places and just enjoying watching what she was doing, and I said, hey, we can do that. We can do that. And so it just starts to, because some people, I am the sort of person who can see where I want to go in my mind's eye. But not everyone is like that. Some people need to see it with their eyes in order to get it. And so, watching like Rick Steves or all the travel shows that are out there. And then also nowadays, right, YouTube is such a great resource for finding out what's happening in a place, just to make it real for people, because some people need to see it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And, also what you said about giving the kids choice, and that's something that I always tell, if you're moving with kids, age-appropriate choices, like, what color is their, the walls in their new bedroom going to be, or what toys do they want to take, or, other things that they can choose so they feel they're more in control of something that feels pretty much out of control. Like one day your parents come up to you and say, we're moving. And, well, you don't really have a say in it. So these little choices help ease the process and help them feel more in control, for sure. So how do you help people? You talked about your courses, and what can my viewers, how can they drink from this fountain of knowledge of planning?
Well, we have a couple of things. First of all, we are still in the beta stage, which in business lingo means that our course is fully developed, but we are just trying to get the testimonials and build our community before we spend advertising dollars to really launch it out there. And so currently we have a special, which is a limited time offer, because we just want to build the community to a few hundred people and have a few hundred testimonials. You can get our recorded beta version of our course completely for free in exchange for an honest testimonial. And the way you can get that is just by going to this link here, and you join our Facebook group, and then you will be invited to take the beta course for free.
Awesome.
Yes. So our live course is actually a 2-day workshop, and the next one is July 2022. So we do them 3 times a year: January, July, November. And it's always going to be the latest and greatest in the live workshop. Also, if you're the sort of person who works better with like a personal trainer than trying to exercise on your own, then the live workshop will probably be a good fit for you. And that course will always be evolving, because Natascha and I are just students of planning and students of brain science, and that is always evolving, right? So we will always learn something new, and we like to share that.
Yeah.
And so, that's how people can do the recorded course for free.
That's great. I will also include this link in the Facebook comments and the YouTube description. So wherever you're watching this, you'll get access to the links, so you can take the free course. I would really recommend people take advantage of this, because knowing, I think that one of the most difficult things, at least from what I see from my clients, is drawing a blank, not even know where to start. It's like it's the exact opposite of analysis paralysis. It's like completely like a deer.
Right, it's just a void.
You're like, okay, what do I do now? And I think that really all these tips and ideas and these courses can really help people make the planning their own, right? Like take these tips and take this mold and create the things that make sense for them.
Yeah,
So,
the way
that's
that we've
amazing.
designed it is that it really is about, like I'd mentioned earlier, like discovering what your values are that motivate you, because they're definitely different for me now than they were, 20 years ago, or even pre-pandemic. My values or my priorities have shifted. So there's that's like the excavating portion of it, and then the second portion, or the last three modules, are really about actionable steps, and that's the key, is like taking this discovery and then really putting into actionable, and like Alegre mentioned earlier, daily activities that help move you towards your goal, even if it's tiny increments. So yeah, that's what this whole course, it says HPOP, beta HPOP, which just stands for Harness the Power of Planning. That's what this course is all about, really, is breaking it down into these chunks, so that it really just organizes it for you, because otherwise goals can feel so overwhelming.
Yeah.
So this really breaks it down into handable chunks.
That's great.
And I just wanted to share one other thing. So if people feel like they don't have the time right this moment to engage, because as we said, this is a limited offer. It'll probably be available for a few months, but that's it. There is a URL here where they can get you and I had spoken, Deborah, about where does someone start? Where do they start with planning? And we have this really great template called our annual review, and while we walk our students through it live at the end of the year for the coming year, it's also, you can do it at any time, just to reflect on the last 12 months.
Yeah. It's very valuable.
It's that
birthdays are a good time to do it too.
Yes, birthdays are a great time, exactly. Mm-hmm. So it's that old adage of you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been, right?
Yeah.
And so this annual review will help to walk people through, what have I been doing the last 12 months? And is that what I want to continue doing? Or are there things that I want to change?
Awesome.
So.
Oh, wow. I'm so excited for all these resources. I'm going to for sure take a look. And I just wanted to thank you, Alegre and Natascha. Thank you so much for your tips, for your information, for your knowledge, for sharing this with us. And I'll let you know. I'll put all their info in the comments. Don't worry. And I hope to see you in the group as well. I hope to see you navigating there. And maybe next time we'll go like a little bit further and go into a certain tool. I don't know. The sky's the limit. So thank you so much.
Our pleasure. Thank you, Deborah.
And I'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.